Welcome to Resilience Radio. I'm Irvin Eisenberg, host of the show and owner of Resilience Occupational Therapy. As always, the opinions on this show are not necessarily shared by me. I like to feature a variety of different perspectives. Everyone has their own healthcare needs, and this is not meant to be medically diagnostic or prescriptive in any way. Today's guest is Betzy Bancroft. She is a clinical herbalist and teacher at Vermont Center for Integrative Herbalism, VCIH. And she's here to talk with us about the enteric nervous system today. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to share what I've been geeking out about.
So we had you on before talking about sort of the mission of VCIH as one of the founding members and founding teachers and currently on staff. But today we were going to talk specifically about the enteric nervous system. Could you just start us off with what that is?
Sure. The enteric nervous system was actually the first part of the nervous system that developed in the course of evolution. And it's the nerve network that organizes, runs, and otherwise maintains motility and sort of the flow of the assembly line that is our digestive function. And then it connects up to the brain. And that's some of the most interesting part of it, that the enteric nervous system it's a plexus. There's nerves, but there's internerves. In other words, it's all connected to itself, that the digestive system pretty much takes care of its own business and does give information to the big brain, which evolved later than the gut brain or enteric nervous system. But they have linked up. But most of the time, the enteric nervous system takes care of its own business. In other words, this brain doesn't have to say, oh, you should squeeze now when there's food to be moved down the tract.
So I think the people often tend to divide the nervous system into sort of the two basic categories of sort of conscious and unconscious actions. And it seems like the enteric nervous system clearly falls in the unconscious realm of things. How does that differ from like the beating of our heart and other things that don't require conscious thought to do, or breathing when we're not thinking about breathing?
Right. Well, that's just it. These functions are mostly automatic or autonomic, and they're taking care of their own business. But especially if they're stressed out or they're unhappy or something is, big going on in our lives, we do start to notice them, right? Like if our heartbeat speeds up, we may actually notice that. And if we are experiencing digestive upset, this brain will get the picture. So yeah, it is a useful division of conscious and unconscious, but we do become conscious of the unconscious. And with the nervous system, there really are two separate sort of systems there. I'll talk about the connection in a minute, but the interneurons that are all through the tubing of the intestinal systems, in enteric as in gut, and the central nervous system, which again evolved later, that is our higher faculties and sort of running the big picture show of our being. So we can also divide it into enteric nervous system and central nervous system. And the cool thing is that they are hardwired together with a nerve network called the vagus nerve, VAGUS, vagus nerve. And a lot of people have heard of that. It's the major nerve of the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system. So what we commonly call the rest and digest mode of our nervous system. So the vagus nerve is activated and the enteric nervous system is doing its thing in a harmonious way when we are in that rest and digest mode. And then if we are activated or stressed into fight, flight, or freeze mode, different signals are happening. And and then the digestive system is no longer prioritized. The muscles and the heart and so forth are prioritized in those moments.
So if the vagus nerve is sort of that connection between the enteric, the gut brain, and the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, and that's relating to the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. Does that mean there's less information being transmitted between those two nervous systems when we're under stress and in a sympathetic response?
That's an interesting question. I can tell you that 90% of information goes up the vagus nerve to the brain, and 10% of information goes down the vagus nerve to the gut from the mind. So mostly, again, it's taking care of its own business. But this is how either digestive upset can register in our mind or our brain, and also especially strong emotions like fear may also manifest in our digestive function, because they do communicate with each other, and the communication is actually, I think, one of the most fascinating aspects of how our brains and our guts are connected, because it's not just the nerves themselves. So there's the nerves, right? The physical highway of nerve, and the chemicals that the nervous system uses, so neurotransmitters and so forth. But then there's also hormones in on it. There's the chemicals that are the microbes in our gut are also breaking things down and metabolizing foods and so forth, making signal molecules. That's how I like to describe them, as signal molecules. That is, chemicals that transmit information. And the cool thing about the brain and the gut being connected is, again, it's hardwired with actual neurons, but there's also an enormous amount of chemical communication going on between those two systems. Here, I'll get a little more detailed on physiology with you. We have this tubing that we call the intestines, but it's not just a tube that facilitates digestion. It's actually also the largest surface area of our personal connection with our environment. In other words, if we unfolded and laid out the digestive tract, it would be somewhere between the size of a basketball or tennis court. That's a lot of square foots.
And is that the whole digestive tract, or just the small intestine we're talking about? Or
the
primarily?
Small and large intestines together.
Okay. And the enteric nervous system is both in the small and large intestine?
Yes, it is.
And it's not as much in the stomach itself. Is that accurate? Or
there is enteric nervous system in the stomach. Like really all parts of the digestive tract need to be facilitated. In other words, making sure that the secretions are being secreted and the muscles are coordinating the movement of the food, and the making of mucus. These are all things that are coordinated by the digestive tract. There's actually sensors through the whole thing, like sensors looking at what we've eaten, sensors looking at how much we've eaten, so that, again, the digestive process can proceed in an orderly, hopefully efficient and effective manner. But when it's dysregulated, like if we're fearful, one of the things that happens when we're fearful is that the motility in the intestinal system speeds up. And like, oh no, we have to run to the bathroom instead of run to lift the tree off the child, So there is impact there for sure.
Okay. And when you're talking about the surface area and with our environment, I like the analogy of the body being vaguely a donut, where we tend to think of our mouth as inside us, but really that's it's not inside us until our body has absorbed it through our digestive tract. So that anything in our mouth, in our digestive tract, is the donut hole. And what you're saying is that the donut hole has more surface area than the outside of the donut.
Yes, I am saying that.
I feel like there should be some there's got to be a lot of jokes about that. It's like the sci-fi The Doctor Who is bigger on the inside than the outside. But so it's our interaction with our environment. We have a much richer interaction with our environment in the donut hole, in the digestive tract, than we have outside our environment and then the outside of the donut, because there's more sensory information being brought in. And if we include the microbes that live in our gut, they're sort of not in us. They're sort of on the outside of us if we include the donut hole as an exterior space.
Yes. Yes. And it actually gets even more complicated than that. And this is why, backing up for just a second, why we have things like gut feelings or butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous or something like that. Because not only are the sensors of the enteric nervous system inside the donut hole, and the microbes are inside the donut hole. There is also a lot of endocrine cells and immune cells inside the donut. So our intestinal system is comprised of our digestion, our nervous system, our endocrine system, our immune system, and all the microbes that are living there that can also participate in the conversations and the sensory gathering and sensory responding and so forth that's going on in there, which is like, how do we even get our minds around that? That's complicated stuff. But 4 different systems in one part of the body, like, wait a minute. But this is, again, why the response to stress and response to strong emotions and so forth, we really feel it in our digestive tracts, because, again, there's so much going on in there.
So aside from sort of stress and both hormonally and a parasympathetic state affecting our digestion, and then the idea that there's a gut feeling when something just doesn't quite feel right, that's information coming from the enteric nervous system to the brain. What are the other implications of this system and this communication?
Well, how well we manage to take care of our digestive tract, like that comes down to the food that we eat can facilitate healthy digestive function, but also healthy digestive tissue integrity. That is, the tube itself is in good shape. It's making the mucus that it should be making to protect and lubricate itself. Again, it's making the secretions that it should be making to digest the food and properly and thoroughly and so forth. So we are well resourced. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So, for example, we know that fiber in the diet from whole plants, whether it's oatmeal or cooked veggies or legumes or whatever, all veggies really. But the fiber in our diet is part of what keeps our digestive tract healthy and happy, as well as helping us stay healthy and happy. And again, keeping everything working properly in the digestive tract, because they're feeding the microbes as well as they're feeding us. And so, yeah, like by eating good, fibrous, rich foods, we can feel better. That is, keep our mood a little steadier. Also, fiber keeps our blood sugar steady, which is also another factor that involves our gut and our brain connections.
So by keeping a healthy gut, and we can get into what that means in a little bit more if that seems appropriate. By keeping a healthy gut, there's that much less warning information being sent to the brain, and the brain I imagine having a healthier gut means clearer thinking. I think it does.
Yeah, I think it does.
I'm thinking about Parkinson's disease, and I've worked with a few different clients who have Parkinson's disease, and I know that a lot of them have done their own research on Parkinson's more than I have. I'm working with them in specific ways, but when you have Parkinson's, and there's just so much research out there, many of which will lead to nowhere. But a lot of people have been talking about the gut connection to Parkinson's, and that from what you're saying, this makes a lot of sense, because my understanding of Parkinson's is your brain has less capacity to do the things that it normally would do. And that shows up both in sort of emotional affect, your facial expressions, shows up in your speech and in your movements, that the things are just moving. It's as you get stressed, you're more likely to freeze and have a lot of the Parkinsonian challenges, but it's just sort of the brain having trouble doing all the tasks at once. And if the gut's running healthy, I could see that taking the load off. In general, when I'm working with people from a manual therapy standpoint, I'm just trying to make their movement easier, so they're having to put less mental energy into that movement. But I could see how gut treatments for someone with Parkinson's, why those sort of puzzle pieces as to why the gut would be so important to Parkinson's is a little clearer to me, better understanding the enteric nervous system.
Cool. That is a fascinating thing to think about, because I have not worked with anyone with Parkinson's, but it does play out with folks' moods for sure. That again, we keep our blood sugar steady when things are going the way they should in the gut. Because again, there's a lot of communication chemistry that's going on in there. Here and so yes, having peace going on in the gut definitely impacts peace in the rest of the body. Yeah, that's totally true. Here's another like crazy factoid. We hear about serotonin, right? It's kind of a happy neurotransmitter. Like when we have serotonin in our system, we are generally in a better frame of mind and so forth. Serotonin does a lot of different things. Like there's receptors for it in a number of places. That is, it impacts a number of different tissues and has a number of different roles to play. But one of its key roles is helping to maintain motility in the gut. That is the orderly progression of food through the tract. And somewhere around 90% of the serotonin in each of our body is produced by the endocrine cells in the intestines. So most of our serotonin is actually in our gut or produced in our gut, and then it can be picked up by the bloodstream, because there's also a network of capillaries right inside the donut hole, right? Especially the small intestine, which is where we absorb most of our nutrition, is through the small intestine. So again, like that's where most of our serotonin is too. So our gut has a lot to do with how happy and peaceful we are. Also, the peacefulness of our immune system is also facilitated by the microbes in the gut. They tend to encourage what's called T regulatory cells, which I know that's getting very, complicated, but think about regulatory, balanced. And that's one of the key things too. So regulation and balance of digestive function also translates into regulation and balance of the nervous system and the immune system, and also stress response, which again, they're all tied in together there, which A, it makes it really complicated, but B, it's like really amazing.
So it seems like you, as an herbalist, your inroad is working with the gut, because if you can resolve the gut from this sort of this frame, you resolve challenges in the gut, then you have a stronger immune system or more regulated immune system. Your emotional systems, you're more likely to feel happy or have more balanced hormonal shifts, as well as having potentially greater mental clarity and focus and ability and executive function ability to shift between types of higher function nervous system tasks. I would also imagine that like things like muscle firing and some of the peripheral nervous system stuff might be smoother in that neuromuscular connection through the gut. So what are some of the inroads to making a healthier gut?
That's interesting. I appreciate that you're connecting in the muscles and so forth too, because that's your realm of fascination. But yeah, so what we are what we eat. and if you look at the history of medicine, like back to Hippocrates, they all like knew something was up, that our overall well-being had a lot to do with the well-being of our digestive tract. But so fiber in the diet is one of the things, right? We know that, science is telling us a lot about how fiber in the diet helps regulate, again, blood sugar balance, blood lipid or blood fats like cholesterol balance too, in positive ways. But when we eat fiber, we're also feeding not only ourselves, but we're feeding our digestive tract and we're feeding our microbes, because they largely live on the fibers that we can't digest with our human enzymes. Besides that, they lend us the use of many, like millions of other enzymes. They can break these fibers down that, again, human enzymes, the enzymes that the human cells make can't break down complex fibers, but the microbes can, right? So again, they're feeding us with those breakdown products. They're feeding each other. They're actually very cooperative. And they're making sure that there's mucus in our gut, which again protects and lubricates us. They're making sure the fiber in the diet, literally, or the outcome, like the downstream effects of fiber in the diet, again, balancing blood sugar and blood fats, but also helping to maintain the integrity, that is the strength and resilience of the gastrointestinal tract itself, or the donut hole itself. So fiber in the diet. So we have to eat plants, hopefully whole plants, that is whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, etc. All of them have different kinds of fiber. There's a bunch of different kinds of fiber, but especially the ones that we're looking for here are the soluble fibers, which like absorb water and get gooey, like oatmeal, and also fermentable fibers, like the ones prebiotic fibers that we hear about, helping to feed the microbes themselves. So yeah, we got to eat whole plants and have fiber in our diet. That's one of the big things that we can do to support our gut and our microbes and the enteric nervous system, really.
So as it is an oversimplification, but the difference between eating an orange and drinking orange juice, I imagine there's a lot more fiber in the orange. The process of juicing it is removing that fiber.
Yes, that's one of the troubles with anything that's even processed as much as juice from a fruit, is not the same anymore. And you get more sugar, but less fiber. And then because there's less fiber, the sugar goes into the blood faster. So yes, eating an orange is different than drinking a glass of orange juice. And someone who's very sensitive, especially to their blood sugar levels, will be able to feel the difference.
I see this as an argument for sort of raw food, people who are very the raw food, people who only will eat raw foods. That this seems like an argument that raw foods are going to tend to have more fibers than cooked foods. Is that something that you feel like is?
No, I think that, cooking food may break down some fibers, but not completely. So cooked food definitely does still have a good deal of fiber in it. And sometimes we really want the fiber to be mixed with water. So again, like the cooking of the oatmeal, you really do.
Eating the raw oats is that.
Yeah, you don't actually want to eat raw oats. It's really kind of irritating and not very digestible. You want to cook your oats. Yes.
Okay. A horse is eating raw oats all the time, and hay and uncooked foods. What is different? Is this specific to the omnivore digestive tract, that we need to be having moister foods?
Well, yes. Well, so ruminant animals, grazing animals, do have different digestive tracts than we do. Yeah, first of all, and this is true of many different animals that are eating leaves of any kind, whether it's grass or whether it's eating, and grass is the indigenous diet of cows and horses and deer and all those animals, not so much the grain itself, but the grass. They chew for a long time. They spend a lot of time chewing. And that facilitates the breakdown of those very fibrous foods and mixes it with enzymes and so forth and whatnot too. So yeah, if we ate nothing but raw food, we would need to spend more time chewing our food thoroughly. And yes, I mean, we should chew our food. That's important to human digestion too, but not to like just continually chew, so yes, herbivorous animals do have different digestive tracts than more omnivorous animals like humans and bears and so forth.
So when we're talking fiber, we don't just want to be eating the fiber themselves. We're talking about water, as you were saying, water soluble and already immersed in water. We're not just talking about eating the raw oats or eating straight flour. We're talking about eating oatmeal and not necessarily always cooked, but food that at least has a moistness to it.
Yeah,
that's going to be absorbable, and
it's good to get a variety. It's also good if someone decides they want to take a soluble fiber supplement or any kind of fiber supplement or chia seeds and things like that, which are very popular these days, is that we will get more benefit from those things if they are mixed with water, or at least that we take them with plenty of water, especially if someone takes like fiber capsules or something like that. It's or spoonfuls of fiber like like psyllium husk or something like that. Very, very important to also consume enough water with those kinds of supplements, or again, even like the seeds and even cooking oatmeal in plenty of water, making a more porridgey preparation will do us good, because how those fibers work is by absorbing water and fluffing up into sort of a gooey gelatinous mixture. Like as that's moving through the small intestine, it's again like absorbing fat, absorbing sugar, and slowing the absorption of those things. So like the idea is that you want this, with soluble fiber specifically, you want this slimy, gooey mass in your gut. It's actually really good for us. Again, soothing any irritation, but also, again, absorbing things that we want to excrete, especially the waste from the liver gets into that gooey, mucusy stuff and helps us detoxify better, right? But that's how it works. It's the soluble fibers absorb water, gel up, goo up, become this, again, slimy mass that the stretch receptors are saying, oh, we got to move this. So it moves better. But again, it also absorbs whatever else is in the tubing and either helps us get rid of it or helps us absorb it more slowly. And in some cases, helps us absorb it more effectively.
And the importance of slowing is we're talking about modulating blood sugar so that we're not having the peaks and valleys in blood sugar and our energy levels in that.
Definitely.
That respect. Okay.
Also help modulating transit time, like making sure that we have a nice, soft, bulky stool to pass. That's easy. Yeah. And then non-soluble fiber is bran, right? We've heard a lot about bran and transit time, but bran is just more like roughage, and it doesn't have the same kinds of benefits that soluble fiber does. I mean, it's useful in actually most foods. If we're getting whole foods, there'll be both kinds of fiber, multiple kinds of fiber in the food. But I just like to contrast, because many of us have heard, oh, bran this, bran that for a long time. And that's helpful too, but it's more the sticky, slimy, gooey fibers that do us the most good.
It's interesting. For I think the idea of sticky, slimy, gooey food is not necessarily the most appetizing, or what people will think of as like their healthy digestive tract. And I was thinking about the parallel between like people like nice fresh water, or nice ocean water, and the idea of swampy, murky, mucky areas that we don't want to swim in, are not necessarily things that we want to be, that we like drain the wetlands type almost mentality, like, but how important that is on a global level for trapping, for purifying things, trapping, absorbing nutrients, and trapping toxins for waterways and storm runoff and all of that. And like thinking about the flooding we've just experienced in Vermont, that if we had more marshy lands, we'd have less flooding. We'd have a more modulated energy in that respect. So not to wax too poetic in the analogy, but I feel like we need our murky, mucky in between spaces to keep us to be a buffer and to keep things healthy.
To keep things resilient. Like really, that's the key there. And you're totally right on. I mean, yes, it's getting poetic in big picture, but as above, so below, as they say. And what's going on inside our body, in the middle of that donut hole, that's again actually very expansive, it is an ecology, and it does behave according to the guidelines and rules of ecology. Like, what are the resources? What are the niches? Who's able to take advantage of those resources? All those ecological principles that we can see in the natural world are also at play inside our bodies, and especially, nowhere more than our donut hole, our GI tract, which is where most of the microbes in and on our bodies live. They live in a very ecological situation. Yeah, we can look at them that way. Which is one reason that food is really the most important way to take care of our digestive tract and our microbes and so forth, rather than like probiotic supplements or something like that. Like, they can be useful, but it's like putting a bunch of one species or a handful of species into a much more complicated ecology. Another group of foods that we hear a lot about these days that are also really helpful for our digestive tract are polyphenol-rich fruits and vegetables. So this is the rainbow a day business, right? You've probably all heard about, eat your rainbow, right? Especially the blue and purple and red. The oranges and yellows are important too, but they're actually more a different kind of phytonutrient. But yeah, all the colors of fruits and vegetables, and then things like we hear a lot about green tea and chocolate being rich in polyphenols too, and that's true. But the colorful fruits and vegetables, especially if we can source them from farms locally, which again contributes to the ecology of our region. But the polyphenols in the diet, they're kind of related to vitamin C, right? Like vitamin C complex, kind of, but they're nutrients in food that aren't part of vitamins, but they're still very nutritious. And they have been found to support the abundance of some of the species we really need, and also to help maintain our gut function, maintain, again, the integrity, the health of the tissues of our digestive tract, as well as blood vessels and things like that depend on polyphenols to be very flexible. So again, it's resilience. When we have these whole, good, colorful foods in our diet, they're more nourishing to us. It's easy to get our minds around the actual nourishment of them. But the functions that they provide the body beyond that, and again, beyond like just vitamins and minerals and so forth, is that they help us be more resilient, right? They help our functions work better, and again, support a healthy ecology of our body as well as the nutrition of our body, which is part of the deal. It's important for us to be resilient so that we can, rise to challenges, accommodate challenges, and, floods, floods and so forth, with a little bit more capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I mean, to continue with that analogy of the floods, the whole straightening of waterways to be able to do for lumber, in order to float lumber down the river, and now we're realizing that actually we shouldn't be straightening, we should be making sure we have bends. We should be making sure that that when there is a log or a rock that's kind of blocking things, that's life for certain animals, as well as slows the water down and allows the water to pool where it should. And we tend to, as a species, or at least some of the species, want to straighten the waterways so that we can have a nice, clear flow. And if our digestive tract were a line, we'd be unable to absorb nutrients. Or regulate anything. And yeah, we could really efficiently take food in one end of the donut hole and have it come out the other, but we wouldn't have done anything with it in between. And that defeats the purpose. Yeah. So I guess we've talked about the digestive system and some of the things we can do for it and how important it is. And we started off talking about the enteric nervous system. And you were talking about how 90% of the nerve information that's being transmitted via the vagus nerve, which is that connection between the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, and the enteric nervous system, the gut brain, is heading from the gut brain to the central nervous system. What is that information? Because it seems like if it's sort of a self-contained unit that can take care of itself, why is it needing to report so much to the central nervous system? And what does a signal on a conscious level look like beyond that sort of amorphous gut feeling we've described? What is that practically speaking taking place in that 90%?
That's an interesting question, Irvin. So the gut brain, the enteric nervous system, and the central nervous system, they're communicating with one another through the neurotransmitters and direct nerve signals of the vagus nerve itself. But other ways that the gut is connecting and transmitting information, that is communicating with the brain. So we have the neurotransmitters, also the hormones that are produced in the gut, like the serotonin, also the metabolites, or the chemicals and substances that our microbes are producing from the food that they break down. So those are part of the communication network. Chemicals that the immune system uses to communicate, which are often known as cytokines, but again, just know that they are signal molecules or communication chemicals that the immune system uses. Hormones, neurotransmitters, metabolites, etc. In other words, there's a bunch of different of these communication chemicals that can travel the nerves. They can also get into the bloodstream and travel from the body to the brain. So through the blood and through the neurons.
So yes, we're talking about the nervous system and the endocrine system are the communication channels.
So for example, stress is one of the things that will be transmitted, I'm stressed out, I'm in sympathetic nervous system now, and now different things are being transmitted up to the brain. Different things are being transmitted down to the brain too. Also, if there's damage in the gut, or say if we have an infection in the gut, that information will be transmitted up to the brain. So this also, if there's reactivity to foods and so forth. So anything like physiological going on in terms of infections or injuries, the usual stuff, but they can happen in the intestines, right? We can get infected there and we can have damage take place there. Or just from, well, yeah, those are the big things. Infection and inflammation will be received by the big brain. If we've eaten something really like difficult to digest, or especially if it's something we haven't been eating much of, and then we like maybe go to a celebration or something and eat something difficult to digest that's out of our normal diet, that information will be transmitted up. Like, this is difficult. What's going on here? So yeah, there's actually an enormous amount of information, again, in the form of chemicals and in the form of nervous impulse that is transmitted up to the brain. The brain basically wants to know what's going on in there.
Mm-hmm. So I guess when you see something or hear something or smell something, there's much more of an active, we're getting an external, the outside of the donut, where it's sensory experience and it's telling the brain something. Mm-hmm. And it could be, hey, it's raining outside and maybe you want to not be out in the rain, or maybe you do, or hey, I smell smoke. Maybe we should see if something's burning, or not be out of this polluted air. It seems like there's much clearer actionable things from these, what we think of as the five senses, which is the exterior of the donut, information coming in from the exterior. But you're saying that there's a much richer information coming from the inside of the donut hole, that sort of interior exterior space. And it seems like it's more amorphous and hard to pinpoint. You don't you're not seeing exact shapes and such, and it doesn't have this same type of clarity. So how do we learn to listen to our guts and know what a signal means when there isn't oh, I smell smoke, let's either go figure out where the fire is or get away from the smoke?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, I think first of all, some of the sensations or information that the gut transmits to the brain are kind of actionable, in the sense of like, oh no, you've eaten something toxic, let's give you diarrhea or make you vomit to get rid of this. So like sending out the offending substance, just get it out of here, whichever.
So nausea really is coming from the vagus nerve, is that, and any of our experience of our digestive tract is being transmitted via the vagus nerve, and maybe hormonal transmissions through.
Well, and some of it, like I said, the enteric nervous system also communicates with itself. Like, yes, if we ate something really funky, we might think, oh, that seems kind of funky, it feels a little weird, but we don't have to consciously say, I should have diarrhea now. You know what I mean? But yeah. But then there's other things too. Like, for example, as I said, when we are fearful, it does increase the transit time of the intestine itself. And so we may notice that we have urgency when we are fearful, for example, something like that. So yeah, the gut and the brain communicating with each other is still like the responses to all of our other senses, is still helping to facilitate survival. It's like the bottom line beneath all of it is what will help this individual human survive, right? But it's not necessarily as directly observable as I need to run away now, so again, my heart rate goes up, blood is sent to the muscles so that I can run faster, etc. But it may just show up again as urgency or lack of sensation that I need to have a movement. So like people's mood slows down, they get, lower mood feelings, that actually slows down our gut. So our frame of mind impacts our intestinal system, our digestive system, but also goes the other way around too. Like if we're constipated, we might also feel really lethargic and muddled in our mind as well, beyond the discomfort that we might experience in our abdomens. So they communicate with each other and impact one another, so that hopefully we can do something about it. Like that's the idea. You better go find a bathroom now, or you should get up and get rid of, or to do something to resolve the stagnation that you're experiencing. Move, whether it's move your body and go for a nice long walk, which is also really good for us, or find drink some more water or something like that to facilitate the movement of the bowel. So yeah, it's all about survival and helping to, again, get back to homeostasis. But yes, what's going on in the gut might not be as conscious or obvious, but can show up as conscious and obvious.
Okay. And when we talk about a gut feeling, I know that when people talk about the enteric nervous system, they're like, well, you should listen to your gut. When something doesn't seem right in a circumstance, parsing that out between sort of patterns in the brain of sort of, hey, we've an emotional other centers in the brain, and what's actually coming from the gut versus what's a familiarity in the central nervous system. What's your understanding of that statement, a gut feeling or trusting your gut, from a more decision-making standpoint?
I think that gets into the chemistry of communication, because some communication chemicals are mellow or happy, and others are more, others rile us up more. We have inhibitory neurotransmitters and we have excitatory or stimulating neurotransmitters. So what chemicals are being produced, who's producing them, in other words, the food that we've eaten, who's living in our gut and what they can make, what our cells are doing in our gut. I mean, yeah. It's the happy or the worried chemistry, like in other words, the signals that those chemicals are transmitting, the feelings that they are communicating, can be positive or challenging, based again on the ecology and what's going on and so forth. So yeah, we can get into some vicious cycles of feeling anxious, and then we get tired, or we don't eat, and then our blood sugar goes down, and then we're like, I have to eat a lot now, and maybe affecting, in other words, our frame of mind can affect our choices. Again, like if we're very anxious, we may not have the capacity to prepare a nice vegetable rich meal or something like that. We might be just grabbing for snacks, grabbing for chips or something like that, and that perpetuates the cycle by not nourishing us and our gut microbes as well as the vegetables or the bowl of oatmeal will. And so it just kind of gets us into those challenging cycles.
Do you have any closing takeaways you hope that the general population would know about the enteric nervous system?
Sure. Like, again, we need nature. We are nature, right? As I said, the interior of our donut hole is an ecology, just like a forest has an ecology, a pond has an ecology. So our connection with nature is really an important part of our personal ecology and therefore our well-being. So have more, like I said, natural whole plant foods, especially, and fortunately it's become popular to eat cultured and fermented foods, right? Lacto fermented foods are also really important, but so is connection with nature. If you can garden or hug trees or something, whatever you have the capacity and access to do. And those simple things can be very useful. And again, I think just the understanding that it is connected. So it's not like, oh no, I'm going crazy. No, you're not. It's all connected in there. So again, recognizing that if we sort of take care of our garden, nourish our garden, the garden will nourish us.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing with us today your knowledge.
Yeah, I hope that was fun. I know it gets into some, science and so forth, but hopefully there's enough general concept that everybody can grasp it and come away with something useful.
Well, I hope so as well. So I certainly got a lot out of it.
Great.
Thank you for listening to Resilience Radio. If you want to subscribe on the podcatcher of your choice, you can get a new episode every week. Thank you to Aaron Marcus for providing the music for this show. You can check the show notes for full credits on that. I hope you enjoyed listening. Take care.